Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Sean Webster, MBE. I got a learning disability. I got dyslexia, and I got short-term memory problems. Yes, I've been working for Informant Team and St Mary's Hospital for 6 years now. I got a lot of good and bad experience using all care. I'm very passionate talking about that because I got a lot of lived experience.
And hello, my name is Kit. I'm a learning disability nurse, and I'm going to be talking through this presentation with you. Sean's going to jump in and give his expert lived experience throughout as we talk about cancer screening for people with a learning disability. So we're going to talk about some of the barriers people might come up against and what we can do to try and break down those barriers and make sure that people with a learning disability are using the services that they're entitled to. So we're going to start off with the question, what is a learning disability? So this is a really important question that we nail down the answer to at the start, just so we all know that we're talking about the same thing and the definition of the words that we're using throughout is just really clear. So a learning disability is a reduced intellectual ability and difficulty with everyday activities. So that's things like understanding new concepts, acquiring skills, managing everyday tasks, and that's something that someone will have with them throughout their entire life. 2.16% of the population have it, and it will be slightly different for everybody that has a learning disability. Obviously, everybody is an individual, and their learning disability will impact them slightly differently. And importantly, what is it not? So it's not a learning difficulty. So these are things like dyslexia or dyscalculia. So these words often get confused with each other, but they are not the same thing. It's also not the same thing as autism. So somebody could have a learning disability and autism. Somebody could have just a learning disability or just autism. If you have a learning disability, it doesn't automatically mean that you have autism, and the other way around too. So why is it so important that we get the words right here? As we said, a learning disability and a learning difficulty are two different things, and they will affect people in very different ways. They're terms that aren't interchangeable. So somebody can have both a learning disability and a learning difficulty, but that doesn't mean that they're always together. If we use the wrong one and use the wrong terminology, then it could mean that people don't get access to the right support, and it could mean that there's some confusion about what someone's needs are. So Sean's going to come in and tell us his experience of living with both a learning disability and a learning difficulty, and how they're different for him.
I got a learning disability and I got learning difficult. I understand both of them, but at the beginning, I found out I got a learning disability when I was 8 years old. It was all difficult for me. I used to be deaf and my speaking was very bad. And sometimes people didn't understand me I was talking. I went to a junior school at the time. I found it very difficult to keep up with the lessons. I couldn't understand what they were saying to me. I couldn't read. I couldn't read or write properly. It was hard to keep up. I couldn't take anything in. But when I got older, with my teenager, I found that I understand my learning disability better. My mum did her best to explain to me about my learning disability, but I was young. It was hard to understand. And when I was a teenager, it was hard because I I went to a special school when I was 8, and I had to feel like I do not learn anything. And my reading and writing, it wasn't much better. And when I was 16, I found out I got dyslexia, and that another setback. At the time, I didn't have much confidence in myself, quite solid confidence. I hated myself because of my learning disability. When I found out I got a learning disability, when I found I got a learning difficulty, it was another issue I wasn't happy with. What my learning difficulty is to me is I got dyslexia. Dyslexia is when if I'm reading any information on white paper, it's black writing. the black writing move around like ants on the page, and I can't focus and read it. It's like being blind, but not blind. It's really hard to understand. And because I got dyslexia, I got short-term memory problems. I do listen to what people say to me and try to understand, but it just won't stop there. After a while, it will stop with my long-term memory, but short-term memory, no. And that is the difference between my learning disability and my learning difficulty. My learning disability is I couldn't understand things. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't read or write on the lesson was on. My learning difficulty is I got dyslexia and I got short-term memory problems. I understand both for a long while, both learning disability and learning difficulties. I was very self-conscious. I didn't have much belief in myself. When I got older, I'll talk about that later. Thank you.
So now we're going to look at the topic of reasonable adjustments and the question of, well, what is a reasonable adjustment? So NHS England said that the NHS must make it as easy for disabled people to use health services as it is for people who are not disabled. But what does that look like in practice? So in practice, a reasonable adjustment might look different every time because it's based on the specific needs of that individual and what they need to help them access healthcare that time. When you truly see a person and make an adjustment that suits their needs and work with them to find the best reasonable adjustment, that's when really good changes can happen, and those changes are the things that can make them access healthcare. So they could be small and simple, for example, offering someone a longer appointment, offering someone easy read or information in a way that they can understand it. It could be offering someone the chance to wait somewhere else that's not the waiting room. So this could be in their car and they're just called on their phone when they want to come in. It could be in a quieter area. Or you can just have an area available with a lower sensory stimulus for people to use. There are lots of different ways that we can adjust our practice to make it easier for somebody to access the care. One important thing to remember is that it is a legal requirement under the Equality Act. Having a disability is one of the protected characteristics in the Equality Act, and therefore reasonable adjustments must be made. So Sean's going to talk to us about his experience of reasonable adjustments and how a successful reasonable adjustment has helped him access healthcare.
My experience of reasonable adjustments. Some time ago, when I used to live in another part of Rotherham, I used to go to my doctor's practice for all my appointments. But the issue was they keep sending me letters for my appointment and I couldn't read them and I keep missing my appointment for years. That would keep happening. And they'll get annoyed with me because I keep missing my appointment. And I told them, can you put your letters in pale green, size 16, bandana, 1.5 gaps, and keywords in bold. And I said, I want it in pale green. I told them, but they won't listen to me. We can't do this. For years, they won't listen to me. And I keep missing my appointment because the letter was too stressful. The writing, like maybe size 10 or 12, and on a white background, and the words were too close together. The ants of the pale stretching me out. And I got a phone call after the blue. A different team took over. I got invited for an appointment about why I keep missing my appointment, and I told them the same thing. I want my information on paper, pale green, size 16, bandana, because size 16 font size I like the best, or 18. And I like to use, make sure the information is 1.5 gaps and the keywords in bold. And make sure the paper is pale green. And I told them that a couple of times. I do, and they keep saying, we can't do this. I can't even train you on this. I've got 22 years at Ely Reid. I can tell you how to do size 16, bandana, pale green background, that's what I want, 1.5 gap and keywords keywords in bold. We called do this. I said, why am I here for? You're wasting my time. I'm worried my health could get worse. But to be noticed my mobile phone. And did ask, can you read your text message on your mobile phone? Yes, because it's big enough to see. I've got a pay a background. I can read it. I don't miss a text. Can you? They asked me about the reader adjustment. Today about my reader adjustment. Said, yeah, I'll be fine. The reader adjustment around. You take me a text message and a reminder text and a text message for my appointment. Yeah, I'll be fine with that. Because I understand that. And 3 years later, I don't miss my appointment. But why didn't ask me that when I joined the practice? I'm the expert for reader adjustment for myself. But they didn't listen to me and trust me on that. All that money they wasted not listening to me. I know what I want. I'm the expert. Thank you.
So now we're going to talk specifically about cancer screening and people with a learning disability. So it is really unfortunately the case that people with a learning disability don't access cancer screening at the same rate as people without a learning disability. So across the board for all three, that's breast screening, bowel screening and cervical screening, the uptake is lower. So as we can see, for breast screening, the uptake is 47%, for bowel it's 53%, and for cervical, the lowest of the three, that's 31%. So as we can see, the majority of people with a learning disability aren't being able to access cancer screening. So across all three cancer screening services, we've seen that people with a learning disability unfortunately have a lower uptake. But what real-world implication does this have? So we know that people with a learning disability are more likely to be diagnosed with cancer at a later stage. Heslop et al. Showed this in their study, where they looked at data from the LEADER report, and they looked at adults that had been diagnosed with cancer. And they looked into what stage this cancer had been diagnosed at. And they found that 45% of people diagnosed with cancer had been diagnosed at stage 4. Now, if you contrast this to the general population, looking at cancer researchers' statistics, they found that 25% of people were diagnosed with cancer at stage 4. So we can already see a big inequality there. As well as this, in this study, they found that only 3% of the cancers had been found and diagnosed via screening. The majority of them were unfortunately via emergency presentations in hospitals or doctors. So that's why we're here today talking to you about cancer screening. With the uptake of screening for people with a learning disability being so low, we're missing a huge group of people from cancer screening. We want to help people access their cancer screening and make sure they're not invisible in the cancer screening world. We want them to be seen and we want them to be screened.